Hey friends, I am here today because one of my author friends, Sally Jo Pitts, who writes romance with mystery, she has a blog where she makes posts titled, I think it's titled Investigating Food in Novels. And so, just as kind of a favor to her author friends, she will reach out to us and ask if we have a scene in our book that involves food. Then we can send her the information about it and she'll post about it and share it on her blog. And, it's advertisement for our books. So, in my book, Accepted, which is book 3 in the San Antonio series, Quinn is learning how to make like a flavored butter. Now, in my book, it's in the 1860s, and so they're using a butter churn, and that is not what I'm going to be using. I have a KitchenAid stand, but the ingredients are the same. So I am going to show you what I learned while doing the research for my book on how to make your own flavored butter. So by doing this, if you make, this is going to be garlic butter. Instead of buying the frozen bread at the freezer section at the grocery store, which is going to have preservatives and all the good stuff, plus it's going to be more expensive. Instead of doing that, you can just make your own garlic butter and then make your own garlic toast. And number one, you'll save money. Number two, you'll be using fresh ingredients. And number three, you're not eating processed foods. So let me show you how we make garlic butter. Okay, these are the ingredients that I'm starting with. We're gonna have 2 cups of heavy whipping cream. This is a 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese. This is supposed to be a tablespoon of minced garlic, but I don't think it's quite a tablespoon. I didn't realize I was down to my last little bulb and it's a little bit old. So I had to cut parts of it off. So we'll just do with what we have. And then we're also going to add in a 1/4 teaspoon of paprika, a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, a teaspoon of garlic salt, and a teaspoon of Italian seasonings. So the first thing we're gonna do, instead of using a butter churn, is we're going to pour our whipped cream into our bowl of our KitchenAid stand, and we're just gonna whip this until it separates into the buttermilk and the butter. So it is started. It's gonna take a few minutes, but we're gonna just let this go and it will slowly start to separate. If this was fresh out of a cow, we would have milked the cow and then let the milk sit for a while to let the cream separate up to the top. And once it does that, you can just scoop it out with like a big spoon. I do have a timer going so that we can see how long this actually takes. Just so you know, this is how they, quote, make buttermilk. As the fats separate out from the milk, the cream, into the butter and the watery part, the part left over is the buttermilk. I'll confess, I've never actually tasted buttermilk like to drink. I think I've probably used it in a recipe for pancakes or something. But my grandfather used to like it, and if my grandmother bought buttermilk for like a recipe, he would drink what was left over. But my mother didn't seem like she liked it, so I was always a little bit afraid to try it on my own. But just for posterity's sake, I will taste this after it is separated out, and I'll let you know what I think. Okay, so it was going kind of slow, so I turned it up to the next highest speed just to see if we can speed up the process. As an aside, if you choose to make butter at home using cream, or if you happen to know someone who has a dairy cow, you can actually do this by pouring the cream into like a jar with a lid that you can close tightly and just shake it. And you just shake it until the fats separate out, and you're gonna have the same effect as this KitchenAid mixer. And I have actually done that before way back in the day when I was first married. My husband's sister had a cow that they milked, and she brought me a gallon of milk one day, and I let the cream separate off and then scraped it from the top and then poured it into a mason jar, and I shook it until I was tired enough to think I was not going to be able to move the next day. I don't think it really took that long, maybe 20 minutes, but it worked. Okay, I scrape down the sides to make sure we're not getting any little bits left, and we'll keep going. It's starting to get messy. I'm going to slow it down a little bit because the water is definitely coming out. Okay, that happened like very suddenly. One minute we were stirring, and the next minute we were splashing all over the place. And we have about a cup of buttermilk out of 2 cups of cream. So now you can see, like, this is really firm, hard butter. And so this is the part that feels weird. You're supposed to wash it to get all the buttermilk parts off of it, because that can cause it to spoil sooner, faster. So I'm going to see if I can get all this butter out of the whisk, and then we'll mash it with a spoon to see if there's any wetness, like in the little gaps inside the butter, and then we'll rinse it with really cold water, and then we start mixing in the goodies. Okay, so I couldn't actually film it while I was doing it because it took both hands, but you can see I've mashed the butter up around the edges of the bowl, and that last little bit down there is where just a little bit more liquid came pressing out. And so now I'm going to scoop all of this up into a ball and just rinse it in very cold water. And then using the paper, I just rolled it into kind of a log shape, and now we can just cut off little slices as we need them. And so we are at 8 ounces on the dot. We used 2 cups of cream and ended up with 8 ounces of butter, well, including the garlic and the cheese and all that. But anyway, oh, it just changed to 8.05. Anyway, that's a pretty good return, and it wasn't that hard to do. One last thing, this kind of butter is going to be pretty firm, so it's not going to spread well if you take it straight out of the refrigerator. But you can get one of these little things, which is called a butter crock. You spread all the butter into the lid, and it's thick enough, like the Dairy Queen Blizzard, that if you tip it over, it doesn't come out. It's smeared. You've smashed it in with the spatula. And then in this part, you put enough water in the bottom to just touch the top edge of the lid. So I think it's about, I don't know, maybe 1/4 inch of water. And I've also heard that if you sprinkle just a little bit of salt in there, that helps also to keep the butter fresh flavored. But anyway, you just store it with the lid facing down, and you leave it out on your counter, and then it stays at room temperature, and it is easier to spread. So I said I would tell you what I thought about what buttermilk tastes like. So tastes like milk with maybe a little bit of a butter taste at the end, but nothing to be scared of.